of about 20 people. He's real popular, and he's a big internet presence. So there's people behind him with the lighting and the microphones and the recorders, and he's humbly presenting himself to the guru with a plan of going to as many as he can find, asking that sincere question. And so that's the way the marketplace is. And that's how, not just in modern times, but this happened a little bit in ancient times, but it was difficult to uh, back then to
Pranam Gurudev.
eat back then to eat food you would have to uh,
Pranam Guruji.
you have to either gather roots and berries, or you would have to farm your little vegetable garden, and or sometimes you go without any food at all. You have to bake your bread, and if the garden didn't survive, then you would, and if the crop didn't survive, then you would have a lean time. You didn't have supermarkets where you could just go, gosh, it's 13 different varieties of kidney beans. Which kidney beans should I buy? From what company? And there's 25 different yogurts. And in my grocery store, there's probably 30 different kinds of yogurts. And if you go to a health food store like Whole Foods, there's even more. So which one do I buy? And I like yogurt, so I try different yogurts. I usually buy whatever is the cheapest. I make sure it's organic, but I buy whatever's on sale. They all have their pros and cons. But this is the way the guru marketplace is now. It's like going to the grocery store and what kind of yogurt should I buy? And you look at, I always read the ingredients on everything I buy. So you look on the ingredients, you compare the calories, you compare the fat, carbohydrates, and then the ingredients themselves. And you compare this yogurt to the other yogurt. And then you have to decide what flavor you want. Strawberry, mango, vanilla with cinnamon. Which one's going to be the best for you? And so this is what the guru marketplace is. And you're judging the guru. Or going about it this way from the documentary, which is what he's doing. And of course he travels and he comes across different temples by priests, by gurus. And this is all being filmed. And he tries to get as much variety as possible because it's going to make his show more popular. But he goes for every person and sincerely says, I'm a spiritual seeker, and how can I have how can I know God? How can I see God? And they each give him their perspective. There's one, and it's actually really, really nice. It's up in the Himalayas, and it's a church. It's a Christian church, and their philosophy is really good. But she tells him that the way to find God is to read the Bible. He says, so if I take the Bible, if I read the Bible, then I can definitely find God, right? And she says, absolutely. I read in the Bible. And then she goes to another guru and he says, repeat this mantra and you'll find God. And so they all have different methods and different ways of finding God. Not a single guru did what I would have done. First of all, remember, he's sincerely coming to them as a seeker of God, but he has a big production crew of 20 people. So first thing I would say, of course, he would edit it out. I would say, I would look around and then I'd be just like that. And I would say, why do you ask this question? I would give an answer. I would find out more about him. So why do you ask this question? So, well, he could say, well, I want to know God. So why do you want to know God? Now, I would definitely get edited out because it wouldn't go any further than that if you couldn't give me a real sincere answer. Would I just give my philosophy and methods because he's a filming crew and this is going to go all over the world? And so I want to present my methods in good light so that it'll attract more people. Well, that's the marketplace. If you're selling, then you have to advertise to get as many buyers as possible. And if you're buying, you have to go to as many sellers as possible to get the right product. Well, that's not the way it works in spirituality. That's the way of the world. That's the world marketplace for a guru. That's the world marketplace for a spiritual teacher. That's the world marketplace for Kriya Yoga, unfortunately. That's the world marketplace for everything. Just because it's spiritual doesn't make it exempt. I wish I'd remembered it. Maybe I copied it and posted it on Vivekananda. And he says uh, something to that extent. Uh, are you asking yourself not what kind of teacher should I look for, but are you asking yourself, do I feel emptiness? Do I want something? Do I want a result? Do I want a common answer would be I want peace. Um, most people, why do they want peace? Ask yourself and ask everybody, why do you want peace? Well, because I don't have peace, because I'm irritable, I'm angry, I'm sad, I'm mad, life's a turmoil, I'm suffering. So they want peace. And so I would ask, what kind of peace do you want? Do you want a peace that is comes when you want it to come and goes away when you want it to go away? In other words, the peace will be like a servant to you. You say, I'm feeling anxious, I'm feeling angry. Come here, keep me company. Okay, now you can go away because I'm going to talk to my friends. And we get rather animated in all the things that we talk about. Now just go away, but come back when my friends go away. Or my spiritual friends have knocked on the door. I'm bringing them in, and I want you to come to show my spiritual friends that I have peace, that I have you. And then your friends leave, and you say, "Okay, I showed my friends that I'm spiritual, my spiritual friends, and now I'm going to put you back." This is 98% of the way people um, think in the world. It's called worldliness. You can take any subject, you can take any interest about anything, and it's all like that. And of course, it can be uh, unimaginably complicated with all the variety of things in the world. Um, so I would recommend the documentary just so you can see, because it's a good documentary on worldliness, and it's a good documentary on what spirituality is not. But the documentary, of course, is on what spirituality is. So whatever you find, it's because of how what you want and how you approach finding it. Uh, Finding God is not an exercise in ego. You don't find it through ego. You can become uh, a Kriya Yoga master, but if you're operating from ego, It's an illusion of attainment. It's something that will you have while you're on Earth and will go away when you die, because it has to do with the body. It's from propagation of the body. Oh, I see that face. I recognize. Oh, I see that name. Like there's one guru he wants to make himself different from the others, so he's calling it Raja Kriya Yoga, to to stand out from the others. Um, so I'm putting an emphasis on this, not to criticize gurus, but to ask, uh, what kind of seeker are you? Now this is from the Guru Gita. What you seek for is what you're going to get. Um, Please bestow upon me the initiation of the Guru. O Master, teach me the path which a seeker has to follow to become one with Brahm. So I'm the seeker, the Guru is the Master, and I follow the path that the Master shows me. Those are all requirements. O Master, show me thy compassion, I bow to thy feet. Is this how we're approaching? If we want to follow the path, if we want to know what the path is and follow it, this is how we approach the bestower of light, the bestower of knowledge, the gift of knowledge, uh, the revelation of the path and how to walk the path. This is how we approach such a person. We can't. Now this happened with Ramakrishna quite often. Is a very wealthy Raja wanted peace, and there was one in particular that came to Ramakrishna and uh, wanted him to know who he was. In other words, give special attention to me because of who I am. And of course, Ramakrishna didn't have any of that. This also happened with Yogananda in India, and to some extent in the United States also. People thought so highly of themselves that they were looking for VIP treatment or to go ahead of the line. So in the documentary, one of the gurus told him uh, uh, what the path was, and he asked him, "Oh, if I follow this path, I'll find peace, right? I'll find God, right?" And he said, "Yes, you will." He said, "Well, how long will it take?" This is with his filming crew behind him. How long will that take? And if you were a sincere seeker, is that what you would ask? Is how long will it take? Would that even occur to your mind at all? How long will it take? A master says that I can show you the path and I can uh, guide you along the path. I can walk with you. And the first thing that comes to your mind is, how long will it take? Well, it's going to take, for that type of approach, very egoic approach, it's going to take a long, long time, because the path does what? The path of Kriya Yoga does what? It teaches humility. It just removes the ego, the impurities in the ego. Now, some understand this, some don't. Because I was taught the ancient way of Babaji, which is the ancient way of all guru lineages, is the ancient way of Babaji. It's been not of Babaji and only Babaji, but all avatars. It's the same ancient way. It's a way of uh, humility in asking, and appreciation, humility and appreciation. If you have humility and appreciation, which are necessary ingredients, just like if if you want if you wanted to bake a beautiful cake, and two of the ingredients for uh, humility and appreciation. Just imagine if those were ingredients to a cake, along with other ingredients. Um, you have Kriya Pranayama ingredient. You have Hangsa ingredient. You have Khetri Mudra ingredient, and other ingredients. You have a service ingredient. You have satsang ingredient, and then you have uh, humility ingredient. Um, you have the patience ingredient. You have the appreciation ingredient. If you had to prioritize those ingredients to make a cake, what in cakes, I don't bake cakes, so I don't know for sure, but I would think that the most important ingredient is the flour, right? I would assume. I could be wrong. So what is the most important ingredient to in finding uh, God through Kriya Yoga? And what opens the door to the path of Kriya Yoga? It's exactly this. It's said in the Guru Gita. A master teach me the path, which a seeker has to follow to become one with Brahm. O master, show me thy compassion. I bow to thy feet. That's the most important ingredient, the primary ingredient. Oh, the master, the guru has to be there. If it's an important ingredient, you can't omit that ingredient. Paramahansa Yogananda was born into as a child of yogis. His mother practiced Kriya Yoga as taught by Lahiri Mahasaya. His father also practiced Kriya Yoga as taught by Lahiri Mahasaya. And they were very devout Kriya Yogis, very devout. And they were serious, very serious. And as he saw that Yogananda, when he was a youth, that he was uh, very much uh, interested in God, uh, in meditation, he taught him
Pranam Guruji.
Om Tat Sat. He taught him Kriya Pranayama. Yogananda's father taught him Kriya Pranayama. And he started practicing Kriya Pranayama. And you know the story in the autobiography of a yogi. Um, he understood why his father taught him that, so he could start practicing meditation. But he was still looking for his guru to take him to God. He understood that his father uh, was also on the path, not having found God himself. And he was a seeker. He was a seeker of God. Um, so Yogananda's mother and father could have said, it's famous that they had a portrait, uh, a photograph of Lahiri Messiah, because his mother referred to it many times. They said, well, take Lahiri Messiah as your guru. There's no reason. They didn't want him to go to the Himalayas. he wanted to leave the family and go to the Himalayas. So if that was possible, you doubt they would have said that to him. But the father even hired actors to pretend that they had attained nirvikalpa samadhi. Well, the elder brother did, not the mother and father. Hired actors to pretend that they were enlightened yogis, and there's no need to run off to the Himalayas. We're enlightened yogis that live right here, and so there's no need to leave your mother and father or your school. His mother and father didn't say that. His elder brother wasn't practicing. His elder brother wasn't a disciple of Lahiri Masai. So they could easily have said, take Lahiri Masai for your guru. Even though he's left his body, he'll guide you in spirit. We'll give you the techniques, and Lahiri Masai will guide you in spirit. They could easily have said that. But they didn't say that because they were ethical. And Yogananda was uh, uh, honest and real. So Yogananda continued and went to great lengths to go to the Himalayas. He uh, ran away from home. He opened that window in his meditation room and rappelled down the second floor where he was, out onto the road where he met his friends, and they went to the railway station, and they made it as far as Hardwar, and they were. The plan was to go into the Himalayas and patiently look for a guru to guide them on the spiritual path, teach them meditation. So fast forward into 2025, or fast forward a long, long time after that to 2020. That's 25 years ago. In all those years between Yogananda living in his mother and father's home, searching for his guru, and then finding his guru, has anything changed? People would want you to think that things have changed. You have to move on with the times. You have to get with it. And the world has changed. The world isn't like it was back then. They'll say this is the new way of searching for God. You go to you don't go to the guru. You go to an organization that represents the guru. And what an organization can represent a guru that's living. It can also represent a guru who is passed on. So usually, uh, an organization usually starts while the guru is still living, because the guru wants to teach other things other than uh, self and God realization. He also wants to teach proper living, being a proper husband, being a proper wife, maybe even schooling for the children, how to teach your children, or even schools as part of the organization that teach their teachings to the children at a young age, and also organized uh, satsangs, organized um, uh, seva, different ways to serve, and propagation of uh, written material put out by the guru, for example, or recommended material by the guru. Uh, and then usually some type of medical treatment facility would be included in the organization. That would normally be a big part of the organization, is uh, feeding the poor. Yogananda, remember, on one big occasion, he really had the feeling he wanted to feed the poor. Feeding the poor was, in an organized way, was important to him. or in an organized way. There's a lot of standards for food preparation. You need it to be. I'm sure you've heard of the Golden Palace in India that serves thousands of people food every day. So it has to meet certain standards of cleanliness, and even when it's made in such huge quantities. So some type of organized effort has to be applied there. Standards for cleanliness. Somebody has to be in charge. People of experience have to be in charge of food preparation in big quantities like that. So organizing is good. If a guru wants to do those things, some gurus have no interest in doing any of those things. Some gurus are just all they're interested in is living in God and teaching others how to live in God. And they refer to the world as Maya, as illusion. And you practice the sadhana as to turn inward, turn off your prana to the senses, turn inward, find the self, realize the self, and that's your religion. And then to continue further inward to realize God, God's inside the self. God's inside me. I'm the self. God's in me. Where is God? God's within. What are you? I don't know. Well, how are you going to go within yourself to find God? I don't know. Well, then you need to find out what you are. So you need to practice self-realization to know what you are. And then when you know what you are, you can go within, can't you, to find God? Nobody's saying to go within the body. Well, yes, they are, Guruji. They're teaching you about the chakras and all this. Okay, well, show me a chakra. Have a doctor open you up and go into the spine. Go to in Atlanta, the Shepherd Spinal Clinic. Go there. My son-in-law is a surgeon at the Shepherd Spinal Clinic. He's actually a spine surgeon. He operates on the spine. And he's never found a chakra inside the spine. Oh, that's your trouble. Is I needed to. The reason you have no feeling to your legs is because I need to do an adjustment on your chakra. He doesn't do that because he's never found a chakra. So it must be very, very subtle, right? So does that mean that it's subtly at a particular place within you? Yes, it means that exactly. It's the subtle place. It's a subtle. The chakras, 7 of them that are predominant. There's a subtle place within you, within your astral body. But you have to know your astral body to do anything in particular with a chakra. And you have to know your astral body to practice Kriya Pranayama. Kriya Pranayama is working with prana, and prana is working with the astral body. Prana is also working with the physical body. And, yes.
Could you show us prana control today at some point?
Yeah, well, there's different ways I can show you. In person is the best way because you can touch me and you can feel the prana. And so, as you know, because we're making plans for me to come to Delhi, so in person is the best way because you can actually see it and touch it. And
okay, Guruji.
Sometimes I conveyed it on Skype. It came across better on Skype than on Zoom for some reason. But also when I have a green background, which is what this is essentially, I guess, it doesn't show up as well because it goes to a sharp edge. It doesn't show anything, to show you it's on the body, but it's also outside of the body. And so you'll see some astral energy outside of the physical body with your physical eyes, which doesn't show on when you have a background. But I'm coming to Delhi, and I'll be bringing some devotees to your house for satsang and food. And I'll show you.
Yes, Guruji, really looking forward to that.
Yeah, I'll show you them. Um, so, well, for some of you who are coming in, I didn't watch the whole documentary because I was trying to. It was really hard. And then when Satguru came on, and I was like, whoa, there's no way I'm watching the rest of it. And so there's a fellow, he's a real uh, uh, high energy fellow. And this documentary is on Netflix, and it's about going to India in search of a guru and in search of a path to God. So he goes to India and he comes across different spiritual teachers, uh, also temples, priests in the temples, also gurus, uh, also philosophers. And he goes before them and he says, real sincerely, he says, I want to know God. Can you show me God? And every one of them says yes. And then he asks them how. And then they go on to tell him what their method is. But keep in mind that behind him are 20 other people with lights and cameras and microphones. So they're all recording this. So does somebody come in search of God with a filming crew? Is that how you would do it? So I said earlier, if he happened to come across me, I would just do that, pointing out all the people around him, and I would say, why do you want to find God? What's your purpose? And I would wait for him to answer that, because his answer will determine whether or not he can find God. If he doesn't have the right uh, purpose, the right reason, even if I showed him God, he wouldn't recognize God. It would be impossible. So most people say, almost everybody says, I want peace. Um, I get depressed, I get nervous, I get anxious, I get troubled, I get angry, uh, I get jealous, I'm unhappy, nothing's going my way, I've got bad luck, and so I'm turning to God, and that's what most people say. I say, well, a guru can give you peace if that's what you want. Can give you peace. How long? If I give you peace, how long do you plan on holding on to it? Because it's very valuable. Are you going to lose it? Are you going to take great care with it? So, oh no, I'll take great care of it. So, okay, well, the peace I give you means that you'll be calm, you'll be peaceful. It'll take away most of your desires for activities in the world that you enjoy now. Those desires will be gone. Most of your desires, meaning everybody has worldly desires. Um, you won't want to hang out with your friends and talk about politics or talk about gurus or talk about yourselves or your music or all these things that you normally like to do. You won't be interested in visiting your mother and father and your family and those things that you normally like to do. You won't be interested in uh, going out to eat for dinner. You won't necessarily be interested in food. The person will think, well, can you give me the kind of peace that will let me have all of that and uh, enhance it, actually? Let me enjoy all those things even more so to a much higher degree, but include peace with it. So I can have all those things to a higher degree plus have peace. Can you do that? Um, I'm just supposing he's coming to me and he's asking me these questions. I would have him answer these questions. Um, so, well, um, can I, if I bring light into a room, um, is it going to light up the room, or are parts of it going to be dark and parts of it going to be light? No, if you bring light into a room, the whole room will be light. So, well, if you bring that light of God into your perception of the world, of yourself, of others, of everything, uh, your perspective is going to be different. Your whole way of life is going to be different. It's going to upset your whole way of life. Meaning it's going to be different. And there's no place for your personal enjoyment and having peace. I have personal enjoyments, but those things, I know that. There's things that I like, but I know up front that personal enjoyments, there's a price paid for personal enjoyment. Right? I very much enjoy taking care of these puppies, for example, but I know there's a price for that. And that's, in other words, it gives me tremendous joy to a high degree, which gives me happiness. But it also gives me tremendous sorrow and um, crying and sobbing and missing. I'm going to have to give them up. And so I've made a deal with myself. I said, well, I enjoy it so much. Plus, it's so good for the puppies. I'm going to enjoy the puppies. And when the suffering comes, I'll take the suffering. That's the tax for enjoying the puppies. This is Ramakrishna said the tax for the human body is suffering. If you want enjoyments of the world, God gives you a human body, but you have to pay the tax, and that tax is suffering. If you cut yourself, if you hurt yourself, if you have a headache, if you have a fever, um, that's the tax. In other words, tax is a penalty. If you um, fall in love with somebody and then they leave you, that's the tax for having fallen in love. Um, Speaking of which, it's extremely, extremely, extremely rare to find two people that love each other. There's always a degree of selfishness attached to it. True love is simply somebody asked me what love was yesterday, I think, and I said love is caring more for the other than for yourself. In other words, their happiness is more important to you than your own happiness. That's what love is, and then they in turn have that same feeling for you. Because love isn't just I love that. That also loves you in return. And in relationships in the world, I'm not sure if that's possible, unless you have true spiritual love. Then it's definitely possible. So love based on any type of worldliness, even if they're the greatest of people, is going to be um, spoiled because of the selfishness. And remember, the situations change; they change rapidly. Uh, New people come in your life rapidly. Old people go out of your life rapidly. Your body is changing rapidly. Is that person going to love you when you become old and lose your hair and lose your teeth? Is that person going to love you? Are you going to continue to love that person when she gets fat and starts to get bored with you? Are you still going to love that person? Or complains to you that you're not doing this, you're not doing that, or you're doing too much of that, or you're doing too much of this? Are you still going to love that person? And some say, well, I'm that way with my children. Well, I counsel some mothers quite frequently. Right now, I'm counseling a mother on a regular basis, at least once every couple of weeks, because her child is not behaving the way that she wants her child to behave. Um, her her child is a grown person. It's not a baby child. Her child is grown up, has her own children. Um, but she's constantly upset, constantly doesn't have peace because her child isn't behaving properly, isn't doing what she thinks she should do. Um, so most um, parents have some idea of how they want their child to be. And if their child isn't behaving that way or going in that direction, then they have some complaints. They internalize them or they express them freely. Most parents will express them very freely. Um, until that child sees the incredible common sense that the parent has, or insight or knowledge, which they also don't have, um, or just feels okay, I'll do that just so you'll stop bothering. Um, so perfect love can't be found between a mother and a child either. The mother and the father would like for the child to love them, um, but you can't. It's not something you can guarantee. And then when the child gets older, the child becomes more interested in people other than their mother and father. But their father and mother still see them the same way as a child. So the mother and father are bound to be hurt unless they have the right attitude and the child is behaving the way that they expected, which can happen. But even then, there's something in our head that still continues to critique, criticize if there's any deviation from what they expect, and it can happen at any moment. It can be they can be doing everything in accordance with their mother and father, and then lapse from that just for one weekend, and they're in the doghouse. So I know what true love is because I love truly, and so I know what it is. It never ends, never stops. Person can do anything, be anything, and all you want is their happiness. And if they're not happy, uh, you're not going to rush in and force them to do something different. You're going to, if they ask you, then you'll help them the best that you can, um, with your knowledge, with your wisdom, or help them from your mistakes that you realize from your mistakes that this, this I found out through my own pain and suffering that this should probably be avoided, because it will probably give you pain and suffering too. And then even if they go entirely, if they renounce you, if they defile you, uh, disregard you, none of that changes your feelings for them. Even if they block you, it doesn't change your feelings for them. In other words, you don't have any bad feelings at all. And this is what they've chosen to do. And love comes with freedom. So true love definitely is possible, and it's reciprocated if you find somebody who also has true love, and and the two come together, and there's nothing like it. It's incredibly remarkable, and it's eternal. Nothing will ever come between it. Now, examples of that is that I use frequently is Hanuman and Rama. It's just one example. So there's a lot of lessons and a lot of teachings about Kriya Yoga, and in books, on video, on streaming, and in programs at um organizations. And organization just means that people come together in an organized way, or it can be incorporated. I would imagine every country in the world incorporates things. Um, and then if it's incorporated, then you have laws and, bylaws, and you're, you know, what in what way that you're going, what are the ideals, and then you'll know exactly what's practiced and what's done to achieve the aim. An organization should have an aim, an aim, not a name. It should have a name too, but it should have an aim. Um, in other words, what is the aim of this organization? And as I said earlier, the most important ingredient to making a cake is flour. Even though I just came across it the other day that there are some flourless cakes. You can make cakes without flour, or so they say. I've tried them, and they say that they're cakes, but they're uh, sort of like cakes, but I wouldn't call them a cake. And I've tried them. So you can call anything. Doesn't make it what it is. So I would say it's kind of a cake replacement, sort of like a cake, sort of like vegetarian meat. I told you the story of Paramahansa Yogananda. He'd never heard of vegetarian meat. He came to the West, and there were no vegetarians in the West in 1940. Nobody. A few, but they were survivalist types. Um, and so he was making disciples, but none of them wanted to be a vegetarian. It isn't like it is now. And so they had to have their hamburger, for example, or they had to have their hot dog. I mean, they had to have it. They couldn't live without it. I'm serious. They can't. Back then, they could not live without a hamburger. It's not possible. I'll just die if I have to go without it. This is what Yogananda's disciples were saying. And so he came across some methods to making hamburgers, but without meat, meatless hamburgers, and meatless hot dogs, and meatless meat. If you go into the grocery store now, you can find vegetarian hamburgers, and they serve them in restaurants, vegetarian hamburgers. So he was highly interested in experimenting and coming up with uh, meatless meats for his disciples to try, and he was real proud of his results. Oh, meatless bacon is real popular. Back then, in the 40s, every American had uh, bacon for breakfast, and bacon is pig, I think.
Yes, it is.
Yeah, I mean, even now, if you go for a walk in the morning, like I would walk the dogs in the morning before the sun came up, and some houses I could smell bacon being cooked in the house because Americans like to have bacon in the morning. And all the franchises, McDonald's, whatever, uh, all these different fast food places, they all have bacon in their breakfast products, and they also have bacon in their lunch products. And so he came out with those, and some of the disciples that wasn't good enough, and so he said, well, okay, go ahead and have your steak or your hamburger, but just kind of keep it to yourself and just do it occasionally, don't do it every day. So he let his disciples that just had to, he would let them do it. Because it really doesn't make that much of a difference. There's plenty of vegetarians that are not peaceful, and plenty of strict vegetarians that are just the opposite. They are militant vegetarians, and they will kill you. If you're going to kill an animal, they'll kill you first. So that's their attitude. They probably will. They probably would. Some of them. But now it's probably a time for you to ask me: is it necessary to be a vegetarian? And you're going to become a vegetarian at some time if you continue to practice spiritual disciplines. It's going to happen. There's nothing you can do about it. So why don't you do it now? It'll probably help. It's going to happen sometime. You're not going to want to eat it, and you're not going to be able to eat it. Those two will probably come at the same time. So,
Gurudev, is it okay if we cheat once in a while, like we had a fish or something? Like when you get to a place where there is not available or like our stuff, and then you just cheat once in a while. Is it okay?
what kind of? Well, you can always choose. You can always choose not to go to that place.
Yeah, that'd be smart.
And I don't go to any places except for on very rare occasion. I might go to some place.
All right.
Like you
like
can.
Over here, they usually like say, "Oh, the egg, so you can have eggs and salmon," and I'm like, "No, not quite." So I call up peer pressure. Or like last week, I had a colonoscopy. So it was the only thing I think it was a 1 week of prep. And the only thing I think you could have from Indian meals were I think yogurt, plain white rice, or roti.
Almost every place that Archana and I, because we went out for lunch a lot, and also dinner, and also devotees came with us sometimes. We'd usually have pizza. And when Lucretius came here to visit, Lucretius and Yolanda and I, when we went out, I think we had pizza, didn't we? Yeah. Yeah. It was lots of good vegetarian pizzas, and almost everywhere will serve some sort of a pizza for you. Um, so that's if you go out. I don't especially care for going out because I think the food here at home is better than any place I go to. You can control what you're eating, and why are yogis going out anyways? What are you going out for? If you're traveling, I used to, I used to travel a lot. I was driving uh, 200, at least 200 days of the year. I was
I was
traveling,
out of
and I and I
temptation, Gurudev. So
and I
sorry.
never
So
and I never ever uh, went out to eat during those 200 days ever. I would I would go to the grocery store and I would prepare it. And in my motel room, if I wasn't in a motel room, if I was sleeping in the Jeep, then I was carrying a big trailer, so I would uh, had a like a skillet hot plate um, that I could cook something in the trailer. Could prepare vegetables. There's a little oven that you can plug into the car, and you prepare your meal. You put it in the oven at a rest stop, and then by the time you get to the next rest stop, which is usually a couple hours away, it's all cooked. Just open up. You're there at the rest stop. It usually has picnic tables, and you eat that. Um, but
you're right, Gurudev.
if you have friends, you tend to go out more because you socialize with your friends. And if you
There was a
have,
little bit of peer pressure, a little bit. It was just a matter of a last minute decision. I got off at work and it was like right next door, and I'm like, okay, that was just a matter of convenience. And then I was like, what am I eating? And then I came back and I gave a half of it to Polar Bear. He was happy. He's like, thank you, Mom, for the salmon. But I was like, oh my God. I didn't even thought about it until I was like gobbled away
well,
half of the way. I'm like,
that brings up a good point. Is you should always uh, be aware and conscious all the time. I'm always aware and conscious all the time, except for when I'm not. So occasionally, uh, there's so much going on around you, and you're intent on doing something, and then other things are vying for your attention, and then that's usually when you can uh, lose your attention and lose your focus for a minute, and maybe do something, start to go in the direction you shouldn't go. But you should be practicing you should have your awareness here all the time. Every minute that you're waking, you should have it there with your tongue and Khetri Mudra. You should be practicing Soham or Hong Sa every waking moment all the time with Khetri Mudra all the time.
I was just irritated.
If,
My
if,
opponent
if,
didn't show up, and I'm like, okay, I lost my work.
if you want to meditate, you're going to have to do this. Otherwise, you're not going to be able to meditate very well. Your meditation is very much uh, dependent on what's happening when you're not meditating.
Right.
And that just makes sense. You can't be doing uh, all sorts of things that take your attention outward, and then all of a sudden decide, well, I'm going to sit and completely internalize. I mean, does that even make any sense? Oh, well, with the Kriya Yoga techniques, I should be able to do that because they're such great techniques. No, you can't internalize. It doesn't matter what the technique is, unless you're internalizing to some degree during the day, and then after meditation, continue to internalize. When you wake up in the morning, first thing you should do is internalize. Remember Yogananda's story of Sri Yukteswar. He would wake up, Yogananda would say, and then he would internalize and go into the samadhi. It's the best time to meditate.
I'm so sorry, Gurudev.
And then it becomes so habitual that you're keeping your awareness here with Hong Sa. You start uh, doing Hong Sa without the mantra, and you start to feel an awareness and a consciousness here that makes you feel uh, expanded beyond the thinking of the mind. The thinking of the mind, when you're talking to yourself, it's really just a small area. But then when you're quiet, that area of awareness expands. But still, that isn't God. That's just being quiet. And you be quiet uh, uh, habitually, and your awareness expands. And then when you meditate properly, your awareness will really, really expand. Um, that's that's how it works for everybody, for every human being. Um,
Gurudev,
yes.
what does this mean? Awareness expanding, and how do we know that it's expanding?
Well, you can take over that way. There's a baseball field. It's been there for it was there in the 1930s. So it's 90. The baseball field is at least 90 years old, 90. And baseball fields are surrounded by a fence. So if I'm playing baseball, and I used to play baseball a lot, uh, your awareness is only inside the baseball field. It's not outside of the baseball field. Now there's behind the catcher. That's where the stands are. That's where all the spectators are. So there's spectators there for your team, and there's spectators there for the other team. And the ones that are for your team are cheering you, and the ones for the other team are booing you, or razzing you is what it's called. Uh, and I always played the pitcher, so the opposing team in the stands, not the players, but the usually the mothers and fathers and the brothers and sisters, they would be yelling at me to try to disturb my concentration, and then they would be cheering for the other team, and that makes a big difference in sports. Booing, heckling, cheering. Everybody that plays sports says that makes a big difference. So those are the different thoughts that come into. Sometimes we think good about ourselves. Sometimes we think bad about ourselves. So that's also in our awareness. But what's in our immediate awareness is the field on which we play. And that's defined by the baseball field, or it's defined by a football field, or it's defined by a soccer field, and it has a particular shape, and every square inch of that field. You know it. If you're a real avid watcher of the game, but also if you're a player, you're even more aware of it. When I played baseball, because I played it so much, I was aware of every little spot in the field because you have to. Because if the batter hits the ball and it hits the grass, you know where all the holes are. You know where there's a little drop off. You know where the impressions are. You know where the grass is a little bit thicker than it is somewhere else. So you're aware of all of it. So if you go out as a player, you're aware of all of that. But you're not aware of anything that's going on outside of the baseball stadium. So expand your awareness beyond the fence of the baseball stadium. That's called expanding your awareness. So have that to include the neighborhood where the field is, and then expand it again, include the town that it's in, and expand it again, do the state that it's in, expand it again, do the country that it's in, expand it again, do the continent, do expand it again, do all the oceans and the continents, expand it again. And go into space. And Yogananda taught an exercise to do that, called the expanded awareness technique. It's not a Kriya Yoga technique. It's just a technique of expanded awareness that he invented because Westerners had a real, that's something they'd never done before. At least in India in ancient times, they practiced expanded awareness by um, thinking of a lake. The lake expands your awareness beyond the body. You think of the vastness of the lake, and then you think of the vastness of an ocean. So you can think of a lake or an ocean, or you think of space, because space is unlimited. So you think of God without form by thinking of those uh, forms that are infinite. Not everybody can think of infinite, so you can think of a lake. And then as you get better, you can think of the ocean because you know geography and you've been to the ocean. You can see how I can't even see that far, but I know through my geography that it goes a long, long way. And then now we have shots of the Earth from space, so we know how big an ocean is. But even as a child, we can think about infinity by looking up at the stars and just thinking there's no end to where the stars are in space. You can go and go and go 100 million trillion light years into space, and it never stops. There's no end to it, and that's the physical world. That's not even the spiritual world. That's the physical world. There's no end to that. So you can think of physical things to expand your awareness, like the ocean or a lake. But the best physical awareness, if you read the Guru Gita, and I know that from actual application because I was in the presence of my guru. So you find that expanded awareness at the feet of your guru, literally. Your the feet of your guru. It has to be your guru, not somebody else's guru. It has to be yours, but the feet of the guru are infinite. Only somebody who's done that knows that. O Master, show me thy compassion. I bow to thy lotus feet.
Guruji,
Yes.
I feel like near my throat chakra, like it's really full of like something doesn't go through sometimes. I think it's too much pent up emotions, and I don't know what to do with so much emotions.
Well, as you know, I have a lot of emotion. What is there to do? What are you afraid of? Um, when I have emotion, I know that emotion comes and goes. It's not all the time. And there's bhava. There's also mahabhava. Can you imagine if you had mahabhava all the time, which means uh, great emotion? Can you imagine if you were sobbing and crying all the time? It would take a toll on your it would take a toll on your body. Um, so emotion isn't there all the time. It just comes sometimes. But it's good that you experience it more and more because it makes you stronger and stronger. Um, you can experience hate more and more, but hate makes you uh, weaker and weaker. But divine emotion always makes you stronger. It makes you bigger. Um, so you can. Ramakrishna said it was like he said Narendra, speaking of Swami Vivekananda, he's like a big lake. Somebody can throw a pebble in a little pond and it makes big ripples. So that's like a little the ability to handle a little bit of emotion, and he was referring to emotion. So just a little bit, just a little pebble, and they start crying. They start shaking. He said that Narendra is he's like an ocean. You can get bigger and bigger lakes, but he's like an ocean. He said you can throw a boulder in the ocean, and it just has no effect on it. It just stays serene. So emotion can be there for um, as you're walking the path. Emotion will come up from time to time, but as you continue to walk, it isn't that there's less and less emotion. There could be much, much, much more emotion, but it doesn't have that effect on you. I mean, in other words, it wouldn't have that effect on you that I don't know what to do. You would just experience it, and it would wane and then be replaced by peace. If we're talking about spiritual, which we are, we're talking about spiritual consciousness, emotion would be spiritual emotion, and it would rise up, and then it would settle down into peaceful perception rather than divine emotional perception. And I have both. I'm very emotional, but I'm only emotional under certain circumstances, and it's fine with me. It's like anything is really fine with me. I don't. Well, this kind of brings up a point. Somebody asked me about dry periods where there's no emotion, and they said, "Guruji, I just don't feel anything. Um, I don't feel like crying. I don't feel like it's just like nothing at all. No emotion. I don't feel devotion. I don't feel emotion." Um, I said, "Well, something is feeling something. Otherwise, you wouldn't be troubling you. So what is it that's feeling no emotion? Well, that's me. Well, what is it that's feeling a lot of emotion? Well, that's also me. Okay, well, what are you? Uh, Always remind yourself that I'm feeling emotion. I'm experiencing emotion. Uh, and then that is a cue for you to settle back into your, uh, as a seer, as a perceptor, as a perceiver. And as a perceiver, you can uh, um, get a stable base. And uh, the emotion can still be felt, but you're stable. And so you can experience the emotion as an observer instead of being in the turmoil of it. You can go, well, I see what it is, and I'm enjoying it because it's not throwing me up and down and pulling me into the waves and spit me out and pulling me back in the waves and spit me out like an ocean as I'm observing it from the safety of the beach. But I know if I go through the emotion, in other words, that foam and those waves at the seashore, if I go further out, the water gets deeper, and those uh, waves I roll with the waves because the wave itself is coming from deep to deep down, and so I'm going along with it. I'm like this. And that's how a boat goes. It's like that. Whereas a boat could just be like the waves crashing on the shore like that, and that's usually what we find disturbing. Whereas a rocking feeling is you rock your baby, uh, even yourself if you do um, some subtle movements that are soothing. Angsa breathing is like a rocking motion. Um, Angsa with the breath is like a rocking motion, and then when it's done without the breath, it's also still a rocking motion. It's mostly what it feels like, and it feels like but without the breath, like right here. It just reminds me. I listened to. Well, I used to listen to Swami Sarvapriyananda quite a bit. I don't so much now. I enjoyed listening to him, and I was mostly intrigued because I never met anybody that just has such an amazing mind as he does. I mean, he knows everything. Uh, so I just watch it mostly for that reason. Not that he's a guru, but just that he's just how incredibly smart he is, and how well read he is, and how well experienced he is. And what was it? Every one of his little videos on YouTube have a title, of course. And one of them interested me. I'm trying to remember the title. No, I don't remember the title. I don't remember the title. I don't remember what it is I've watched. There's so many of them. They'll come to me. I'll start talking about other things. It'll come to me. It's really interesting. Uh, as you practice interiorization every day, as you make it a habit, then you're mostly interiorized without making an effort. So you wake up in the morning and you have a tendency to, uh, without having to remind yourself, well, as soon as I open my eyes, as soon as I open my awareness, I experience a taste in my mouth. That's my body. And then I can see my body, and then I check what condition my body is. The first thing I do is how do I feel? Of course, it's hard for me because I don't sleep very much. But how do I feel? Um, maybe you went to bed and you had a little stomach ache. You know that sleep is good for it. And you wake up and say, I'm feeling, stomach ache is gone. I'm feeling really good. So you're assessing your vehicle. When you turn the key to your car, and I'm real tuned in to how my car drives. So I know how it should feel smooth and energetic. And if the cylinder is missing or something's rattling or the suspension is popping, I know something's wrong. So I'm always assessing the oil temperature, the uh, all the different gauges on the car. And then if any of the gauges go uh, above or below their parameters, then something is wrong. So you wake up in the morning, and because you've been interiorizing continually for so many years, you wake up and you just automatically take stock of the body, and you automatically are aware of the mind, and you take the seat of the observer without trying to. See, right now you're trying to. You wake up and you remind yourself I'm the observer, and then you start the day so much better if you immediately when you wake up take that seat as the observer. Okay, now I'm in my chair and I'm the observer. And that's what Sri Yukteswar would do. He would wake up and then he would go into samadhi. You don't have to go into samadhi. Most can't do that right away. Just take the seat of the observer and then get up and wash your face, go to the toilet, um, sit on the floor, do the Mahamudra or whatever stretching you like. and then sit on your asana. Your asana really is the seat of the uh, observer. It's there that the observer becomes merges with what's being perceived in spirit. You merge with spirit. I've left my body, and now I'm in the astral body, and I'm at that seat of awareness in the viewpoint of the astral body, and that's called subtle meditation. And then you go deeper, then you're at the seat of higher samakalpa samadhis, and then nirvikalpa samadhis when you're unaware of yourself as being a physical self. You're unaware of yourself as being a astral self, and you're even unaware of yourself as being a subtle self. All you're aware of is just God, but you can't explain it because you're not aware of God. And this is why some say that Buddha uh, didn't believe in God, or we as Buddhists don't believe in God. To believe in God, you would have to say, that's God, and I believe in God. But God isn't of that. So there is no God because I can't point to what God is. I can't say God is this or God is that or God is this. But I'm not a Buddhist. I can point to something and say that is God. Yogananda could point to that mountain and say that, see that mountain? What do you see? You see a mountain? This is to his disciple in the desert. So I look at the mountain, I see God. So I wake up in the morning and first thing I see is myself. I see my hands. I see my waist. I see my legs. I see my feet. I see God. And then I go to the sink, and because I leave the windows open, and I also leave all the lights open. I'll talk about that a little later. Bugs will come into the room, and I'm always in conflict. Should I turn the lights off where the sink is, because that'll just attract more bugs. They'll come inside and they'll die. So I usually turn it off just where the sink is, and I'll shut the blinds, not the window, but just the blinds. That way, fewer bugs come in. But every morning there'll be at least one little bug that'll be in the sink. As soon as I see a little bug, I see God. It's definitely God in that little tiny body. And then I start seeing more and more and more gods, more Krishnas. I see Krishna, or I see Shiva, or I see Kali everywhere in the forms of the bugs and the birds and the bees and the trees, every living thing. I mean, I actually perceive God. So if I go into a deep meditation where there is no form, uh, at first I see God without form, but then if I go deeper, then I don't see anything. Just so I won't forget about the lights. For some reason, I don't. If I go into a room, even if it's during the daytime, I have to turn all the lights on. I'm just compelled to do it. But especially at night, I turn all the lights on. I would turn them on in every room in the house, but I don't live completely alone, so I couldn't do that. Otherwise, I would. But in my
Why
bedroom,
would you
I have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11. There's 12. There's 12 lights in this room. And I leave all of them on 24 hours a day, especially at night when I sleep. I leave all of them on. Why do I do that? You're told if you meditate, it's best to meditate in darkness, right? So I assume when you meditate, do you meditate in darkness? I'm just asking you, just out of curiosity. If you don't, we never really talked about it. If you wake up early in the morning, it's dark. But is your room dark? Do you light a candle, or um, keep like a subtle little nightlight on, or a little amber lamp or something, just so you can see around?
A little diya usually, but I didn't know you're supposed to meditate in dark rooms. That I
Yeah,
didn't know.
most people are told to meditate uh, in the dark because there's nothing to distract you, and you can see inner light better that way. That's what they teach you in Kriya Yoga. Just turn the lights off. But if you meditate now, almost all my meditations were outside, except for if it was raining. I would go inside. So, but if you go outside and meditate, there's always light. In other words, it's always somewhat well lit. If you go out into the Himalayas, for example, uh, it can get dark, definitely very dark. But once your eyes get associated, uh, it becomes more illumined just because you're getting, your eyes are getting adjusted to the darkness so you can see more and more. In a deep jungle, and I've been in a deep jungle at night, and it can be so. If the jungle is really thick, it can be extremely dark, where it's hard to even make out your feet. So you could trip and you could stumble. But in most outdoor situations, you have the moon, you have the stars, and it's pretty well lit. So you can find situations in darkness, but it's a little difficult. Some people put on a mask to. I have some sleeping masks that I use sometimes, but I still keep all the lights on. Meaning sometimes I might use it maybe once or twice in 3 or 4 or 5 or 6 months. Um, Usually if I'm traveling, like at a hotel or something, and I'm really, really tired. But no, a lot of my meditation was done during the daytime outside. And a lot of my meditations were done at 12 noon, which is when the sun is at its zenith. So it's real, real hot. It's real, real bright. Uh, uh, you do want to be in a secluded place so people aren't tripping over you, or there's not a loud conversation 10 feet away from you. So you still want to be in a secluded space, but there will be snakes, and there'll be lizards, and there'll be mosquitoes, and uh, it'll be, if it's summer, it'll be extremely hot, or if it's winter, it'll be extremely cold. So it's best to meditate with some obstacles to meditation for you to get stronger. Like I can, when I have this real bright light right in front of me, I close my eyes, and your eyes get an impression from the light, so you still see that. If you look at somebody and you close your eyes, you'll see what seems like almost like an astral uh, image of the person you were talking to. So if I look directly at the light, that goes away within just a couple of seconds, and then I start seeing inner light. Like I'm having inner visions right now, but I have my eyes half open, so uh, I still see you, I still see the desk, and I see the light. But I'm seeing astrally also. I'm seeing what's going on in the astral world. I'm seeing a person right now staring at me. Nice, calm, beautiful person. And so it's Lahiri Mahasaya, and a lot of gurus and a lot of sadhus, they meditate with their eyes half open. I usually meditate with my eyes half open, just because I don't like to close my eyes too tightly. You know, I kind of knew that I was doing it, but I very rarely watch the videos that they make, but occasionally I watch them. And sometimes I'm like squeezing my eyes like this, like I'm talking, and I'll go like that. It's because uh, I feel a lot of energy in my body. Is the main reason I do it. So it causes my uh, pressure inside my eyes, causes pressure inside my uh, face. That's primarily where my attention is when I talk, because my attention is like right here. And so a lot of energy goes there and causes some twitching and some, and I do that to release the pressure that I'm feeling. And also because my eyes usually are sensitive, and trying to find some reactionary comfort in a way. The senses are. Oh, why do I have the lights on? I don't know. I'm not saying that you should have all the lights on, other than Ramakrishna would say from time to time. He said when he would go to a devotee's house, a carriage, he would approach. They had the oil lights on the carriage to show the way, because everything was a horse and buggy back then, and that would light. They had two on the front and then two on the sides. That would light what's going on the side of the carriage, and it would light what's going on in front of the carriage. And he would approach the house of the devotee, and the devotees that invited him to their houses were all very wealthy, and they usually had big houses. And he noticed that most of the rooms were dark, and just the room that they were in had light on. And that always displeased him. He said that somebody should never, in their home, I mean, in their lights, they should never live in darkness. They should always have the lights on. And at the time, I read that when I was 17 years old, and I never really was in control of lights, anyways. But so I never really thought about it. But that made a big impression on me. So I just started automatically from the age of 17. Whenever I go into any room, even somebody's house. I mean, if I come to visit you at your house, don't be surprised if when I leave, all the lights are turned on. Because if I go into a room, I will turn the lights on, and I'll leave them on. You're going to have to turn them off yourself. That's how much of an impression that made on me. And so I sleep with all the lights on. I meditate with all the lights on. It doesn't make any difference. I can sleep with a light directly in my face. I try sleeping with the lights off. I actually sleep worse. I have lots of bad dreams if I sleep with the lights off. Demons or bad spirits or something seem to attack me when I sleep in darkness. So if I
So
forget,
I'm not the only one. I feel like when you're sleeping alone and your room is dark, I scared like crapless too. I feel like somebody's staring at me. And like time to time, if I don't have my night light on or my night lamp on, and I feel like literally somebody standing on my feet side or standing on my head side, and randomly I will hear the pounding or walking somebody, and I will say, okay, stop, it's enough. Or I will say, okay, maybe there's a Guruji here. I'm not. I try to think something positive than trying to be like.
we could say that that's your imagination, but I don't think it's all your imagination. Some of what I see definitely is my imagination, but not all of it.
No, because not if you're.
Spirits, dark spirits, negative spirits are all around us. There's
Yeah,
good
they
spirits all
exist.
around us. There's also negative spirits all around us. All the time, pretty much. Not all the time, but pretty much all the time.
Yeah,
And
especially when you're driving at night, sometime you feel like somebody came and sit next to you. And I'm like, okay, now I just passed the graveyard. You can get out of the car. like
Yeah,
dumb
yeah. No,
stuff like that.
that's just yeah,
I don't know.
that's just your thinking.
I
That
don't
is
know,
your
but you
imagination.
just, I feel like randomly what happens, the elevation of the car, like, literally if you're driving and there's nobody sitting on your right hand side, and all of a sudden, how the seat goes down and you can just feel somebody sits there. I don't know. I don't want to sound creepy or crazy, but there's a times it happens. If I'm driving
Yeah,
or
if you're driving, the spirits can't keep up with you when you're driving. They're not that fast.
yeah,
So that
or at night
when
at
you're
home for
driving,
sure that happens.
that's your imagination. But especially if you're driving and you have the torch to illumine the road, and there's lots of shadows, it seems like there can be a lot of activity in your on the road. You might see like you saw something run across the road, and it's just your imagination. But to understand that the astral world isn't somewhere else. You're living in the astral world, and the causal world isn't somewhere else. You're living in the causal world too, and your body is present in all three. Uh, so when you meditate, when you do certain mantras, you can be calling uh, uh, good spirits. You can also be calling uh, negative spirits, positive spirits, negative spirits, pure spirits, and impure spirits. Now they say that
Guruji,
yes,
how the negative spirits can, like, they have powers to even like disturb a high spirit like you?
yeah, especially uh, they're can definitely um, I've experienced tremendous uh, evil spirits. Um,
Do they
uh,
come also to you for liberation because they're stuck in their
oh,
lifetime?
I don't know, um, but especially if I'm alone at night, that's when all the evil spirits would bother me. They don't bother me anymore. They used to bother me a lot, and because I was always alone, 24 hours a day. So then nighttime would come. I lived in the mountains. I lived in the woods, and um, there's one particular demon that would come to me every single night for gosh, 6, 7, 8, 9 months, almost a whole year, and it was absolutely terrifying. I can tell you the whole story. I won't because it was really scary, and it really scared me. But I would take it for a while, and then I would just make a choice. I'm not going to be afraid, and I would be determined to run towards it with everything I have. It's coming to me, so I'm gonna go towards it even uh, harder, and then that's when it would disappear. Um, but it would take it would take a lot of time to get up that courage to do that, and
Gurudev, I
that
have
would.
two different questions and two different times.
Mhm.
My first question is like when you're sitting in the meditation and randomly your body feel like you have creepy things running over your body. Is it your imagination also, but it's just happening like you were talking about earlier, like if you see snakes or you see bugs in your room, like again most of my meditations at night and I will see a random bug will come across and I'm like what the heck, and then you feel like something's running on your back also, um, um time to time. Is it normal, or you see a huge snake or you see a big snake front of your eyes and you're like, how you always say, okay, keep your consciousness between your third eye, keep it there, and then you can
No,
just see the
that's the chakras being activated is what you feel. But especially
oh,
snakes. Snakes are real auspicious. It's always good when you see snakes in meditation. It's really good. And it's good when you see snakes in real life too. I mean that's the power that is Shiva, and I would see snakes frequently in meditation, but I've grown up with snakes, and so my father was as part of his work, he had to handle snakes, and so he taught me how to handle snakes too. And we protected snakes, and we educated people. He educated children and adults about
Literally
snakes,
see
not
like
to
a
be
snake
afraid of them.
right here, and then I see it, Lord Shiv and Ma Parvati going up. Their whole body was like united, and then randomly I see a dream. The temple I went there as a kid, it's called Tirupati Ji, and then I went there and did Tika, and I'm like, you'll be sitting in one place, and then everything is happening is so fast. It's like you can just feel at the back of your spine is going like this. It's just crawling things, and I'm like, come on, not
Well,
now,
you
you know.
should definitely encourage that, and you should feel that. Place your attention on it even more. Don't pull away from it. Encourage it, and put your
Okay.
attention into it even with more concentration. Don't uh, don't turn away from it or withdraw your awareness from it. Put your awareness into it even more. And there's a reason why. If you feel uh, strange little sensations on your body that you know that they're not that it's not a skin condition or a little pent up energy under the surface of the skin, and that's prana moving through your body, and uh, just disregard them. That's what it is. And let's see, it's in the past week for some reason I've never had this before, but I've been I used to see it in a big way. In other words, I would see uh, people in the room. Um, I would see creatures, animals in the room, and it would be a person either standing there, or if it was an animal, the animal would always be moving, like around the corners of the room. Um, and this wasn't my imagination because I wasn't thinking about anything in particular. Uh, and I still see that, but now I had it for a few days, and I thought, well, maybe it's just maybe it's part of a sickness or not being in perfect health or something, or maybe it's something with my eyes because I was seeing uh, smaller things um, moving at a faster speed out outside of myself, like in the room or outside, but mostly inside. But it would never stay to where I could focus on it. It would move real fast. Little small things. It made me think of uh, Ram Kumar. He was the very first person, Ram Kumar and Vanya Basu were two very first people that contacted me when I was on Guru's Feet website making posts. That's before I ever even heard about Facebook. I was making posts on Guru's Feet, and they contacted me, and then they're the ones that told me about Facebook. Ram Kumar is the one that if you look at my portrait, he put the little drawing of Lahiri Messiah at the ticker. He's an artist, and he put that in there, which I thought it was just his idea. I thought it was really nice, so I kept it. But he would tell me is that uh, um, I see black ants, the crawling bug,
Mm-hmm.
and it really disturbs me. But he would see black ants all the time, and
Yeah, I have that in my meditation room. I have like
I,
the
I
weird hands, and they just
no,
randomly will come.
he would see him when he wasn't meditating. That's why I never heard of that before. I had no idea what that was. What do you mean you're seeing? Because I asked him, I said, you're seeing, you keep thinking about an ant? He says, no, I see black ants, and it really bothers me. And I didn't at the time. I didn't have any answer for him. I tried helping him, but never to his satisfaction.
Guruji,
I don't talk to him now. I don't know if he's seeing black ants still or not. I don't know. Yeah, what's that?
I think I read in one of those Ramakrishna books, these are disembodied, what you call disembodied spirits of some kind who are still roaming around.
Yeah, that's what I think it is.
Makes sense if you, I think it makes sense.
Yeah, you're just kind of peering into the astral world, so you're seeing other. Because it's kind of maybe doesn't make us feel good that we're spirits roaming around, but that's what we are. But it's really in an orderly fashion. If you study an ant hill and you see what the ants are doing, the ants are very organized. But if you look at it at a distance, it looks like they're just roaming around. Or my dogs, I put them in the backyard and they roam around. They go from here to here to here to here. But if you look at it from different perspectives, it starts to become more and more organized. The dogs are following their noses and they can smell something that was there 10 years ago. They're smelling things that we can't even imagine. I used to have a dog. His name was Bobo. He was a Catahoula dog, real beautiful dog. And this is when I lived in Florida. In the backyard, he would dig and dig and dig and dig, like 4 or 6 feet under the ground, and he would pull something up, and it was some piece of iron. He would find coal, and he would find iron. But he could smell that underneath the ground. He knew it was there, and he would dig for it. That's how good their noses are. Um, but everything is organized. Everything is being controlled by God in a very orderly way. It seems disorderly. It's because we're looking at it close up. If we look at it from a distance, we'll see that God is directing everything perfectly. If
Gurudev,
we
is
think of it,
enlightenment, sorry,
hmm?
is enlightenment also predetermined, or like when it happens and the time is also like the God has planned that time, and then until that time you have to suffer until you get to that?
Well, understand that enlightenment is uh, it's not a thing that's going to come. I mean, it's already here. So that's important that that's understood. Otherwise, you'll be looking for something. You'll spend your whole time looking for it, and you're never going to find it. So it isn't something you're looking for. It isn't something that happens. You've always been enlightened. You're just a little sleepy, a little drowsy, and a little inattentive, and you're uh, losing your attention out through the senses into the world of misperceptions and dreams and thoughts and feelings. But enlightenment is always there, just like the sun is always there. So you say, well, okay, well, talk to me logically. I'm not enlightened now, so I'm talking about when I become enlightened. But still, you're never going to become enlightened. If you meditate for 100 years, then you become enlightened. No, you never. The gurus, they didn't become enlightened either, but they say that they're enlightened. Well, what they're saying is that they have uh, God experience and God knowledge. They're not talking about their own enlightenment, because as you approach that light, all it means is that you're reducing your darkness, you're reducing your ignorance. So your ignorance is becoming discarded, discarded, discarded until uh, all the light is exposed. But the light was always there. So you were always in light, but while being in the light, you decided to focus on your thoughts that led you out into the world and then drew your attention out into the world. But I don't want my attention being away from the world. I'm in the world right now. I'm here for a reason. My attention being out in the world is perfectly okay as long as I have my attention on what is real. And I know that this is illusion. And that I know that what is expressed through the shadows is the play of light. And without the shadows, there wouldn't be a play of light. It would just be light. There would be no play. So the shadows are necessary for the light to play. If light is just occupying every single atom or whatever is smaller than the atom, times a million, the smallness of that, of light, then it would just be light. That would be divine light, so it would be perfect tranquility. I want to experience God at play. I don't want to experience perfect tranquility because I know it's always there. It'll always be there in the future. I want to experience God at play, God's play with me and with others. So this life is it's like the twinkling of an eye. It'll be over before you know it. When you come out of this life and you wake up in the astral world, you'll have some memory of it, and you'll think, but you won't have very much feeling about it. The memory won't mean a whole lot to you, but you'll have the memory, and you'll think, no, that was just so short. It was just like a momentary thing, and all those feelings and emotions and dramas, they were just such a small aspect of what I'm experiencing right now. It's like a life is like a thought within a big thought. And now I'm in the big thought, and that was just a thought. Like right now we're having thoughts. We have the thought, we're aware of it, and then it's gone. And so one life of say 70 years is just like a thought. And so, you know, all the big dramas and problems that we have now, remind yourself of that. You know, without the body, you wouldn't be having any of them. Some people commit suicide because they think uh, everything will be gone and I won't have the problems if I kill myself. Um, well, that's true. Those problems that you're living in so dramatically, they'll be gone because you cut off all connection with them because they're all related to the physical body. But you'll have other problems because you're not problem free. But you definitely after killing yourself isn't a horrible sin where you're banished into hell. But it's incompleteness. You didn't complete what you came here to do. So that's the bad that's associated with it. Because it's kind of like, uh, it's just not such a good thing because you came here for a purpose and you didn't fulfill that purpose. So it's kind of a disappointment to kill yourself, and you'll feel that way too. You won't feel you won't be put in hell, but you will be disappointed with yourself. Why did I have the courage to see it through? Well, the reason people don't is because they're materialists and because their devotion, well, there is no devotion to God really. And so they succumb to their materialistic beliefs and they end it. Which makes it really, really funny. I told you this story about how I was institutionalized because they had said that I was trying to kill myself. I explained to her that no, definitely not. I would never do that. I'm the last person that would do that. Well, it's a law in Georgia that if the government thinks you're going to kill yourself, you're breaking the law. So they'll put you in a mental institution. in some legislatures in Georgia House and Senate, they passed it. They thought that would be a good law to punish somebody who wants to kill themselves.
When you brought in a very good point, it's like, what is your fear, right? This body, like I see this physical body, I'm 53-year-old in a week. So it's kind of like I have a pain and agony in my heart, like I want to meet my beloved. And sometimes I'm being more impatient than the others. Some days it's kind of like, okay, I'm going to try harder today versus I did yesterday. And then I think that's where, like, back of my head, there's so many questions. And I feel like, okay, where are the answers? And then I sit down and I was like, okay, Gurudev said this, Gurudev said this. And then I try to play this in my head. And like, for example, we posted a few days ago about Buddhaji, right? And then the picture of the Lord Buddha and the disciples were sitting. The thought I was having in my head is like, were we there at the time when Lord Buddha came? Like the like yourself, ourselves, like what we there, and like how many lifetimes we have to come and go before we're going to wake up? I guess that's what my question is in a bigger picture.
Also, a lot of people wonder that. Almost everybody wonders that at some time or another. It's okay to wonder that, to play around with it for a little while, but if you want to do that, just put a little bit of attention to it, and you can start to see how karma works by examining that. And if you listen to satsang, you can see how karma works, and it's not a bad thing to understand what your karma is and how it works and how it affects your life. I think it's important to understand. It was important to understand because I have much more peace in life because I understand it now. So you could think, was I there at the time of Buddha? Was I there at the time of Rama, or was I there at the time of Jesus or Ramakrishna? Or were you there at the time of Yogananda? All those things are natural to think about, and maybe you were. Maybe you were there at the time of all of them. I don't know. But you're able to think those thoughts only because you're here right now. If you weren't here right now, you probably wouldn't be thinking those thoughts. So why are you here right now? It all comes back to why am I here right now? If I was there at the time of Buddha, I was probably thinking about my family. I was thinking about my work. I was thinking about my problems, and I wasn't thinking so much about Buddha. When Vivekananda went to Ramakrishna, I told you the story. He went to Dakshineswar and saw Ramakrishna behaving very strangely. And he went back to Calcutta. He didn't come back again for 3 months because he had the Brahmo Samaj, he had his family, he had things there that he was habitually doing. So it took a while for him to come back. And then he would leave again for long periods of time. He was real erratic in how often he would come back. And to think that he would recognize Ramakrishna as the avatar. If anybody's going to recognize it, you would think that he would. And would just stay there, wouldn't leave. But that wasn't the case. And he came with Ramakrishna. Ramakrishna says that he didn't recognize it. So it's natural not to recognize it because we're right in the heart of Maya right now. We can think about our past thoughts, but it's our present thoughts that are an obstacle to our vision. Okay, Om Tat Sat, and I'll see everybody. Kodmalingi.
Master Namaskaram, Gurudev.
Thank you, Gurudev. Thank you, Gurudev.
Tattam Samachto.
Master Namaskaram.
Thank you,
Tat
Gurudev.
Sat.
Thank you, Gurudev.
Tat Sat.
That's
Pranam,
Tat
Guruji.
Sat.